San Francisco's largest mall, some of you refer to it as the poop in the elevator mall, it has dropped $1 billion in value inside of 10 years, and it is now 93% empty. Billion in value down, 93% empty. What is happening with San Francisco's largest mall? Let's get into it. Here we go. Of all the real estate stories I've read, I don't think I've ever had one that I could confidently say there's been a $1 billion drop in value. That's just insane. Granted, you have to have a pretty big asset. That asset has to be either commercial office space in, one of the big city centers that had that whole out-migration of people with work from remote, or a shopping mall like this that's in close proximity to, say, I don't know, the Tenderloin. Yeah, that's how you get a $1 billion drop. That is massive, massive. Headline reads from San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco's biggest mall is now 93% empty as its value drops another 25%. That's 25% in a year. August of 24 to August of 25, 25%. Now you might say, well, Sean, you're a real estate appraiser. You know how those valuations can kind of be wonky at times. Yes. But to have that valuation just continue, how much lower can it go? Right? How much value can you, you can lose it all. But even the dirt has value, right? So $1 billion. San Francisco's biggest mall is now 93% empty and its value has slid another 25% according to a new appraisal. That shows you how rapidly these conditions are deteriorating. Or it's also, you're getting more information, you're getting more data now. So the appraisers, they had no data at some point in time because there's nothing selling. There's nothing being foreclosed because it just takes a long time for all this to hit the system. Well, now you've got some data in a new appraisal. Commercial appraisals are just basically based on income. Take the income stream, current income, multiply it by whatever, multiply what it could rent for by a multiplier, and that's your valuation. So all of these numbers have just been absolutely tanking like there's no tomorrow. San Francisco Center at 865 Market Street was valued at $195 million this month for 1.5 million square feet. 1.5 million square feet, it's $195 million. Nuts, absolutely nuts. That's down 25% from August of 2024 and a whopping $1 billion less than its 2016 valuation. Those are some significant numbers. Adding to woes, the Morningstar report states that the mall is in negotiations with the ground leaseor over claims of a ground lease default. They've got, what do they have? Yeah, there's a lease on it for $3.26 million. Don't really care about that. Not really all that relevant. But the previous owners, Westfield and Brookfield, remember when it used to be called Westfield Center Mall? Those owners seized payments on their $558 million mortgage in the mall in 2023, shortly after Nordstrom said it was closing. So, this started during the pandemic. Nobody was going anywhere. The malls were all shut down. Stores were all shut down. Everybody left San Francisco. They went and worked remotely. Well, now they're coming back, but this mall has been so devastated because of stuff like this. Downtown San Francisco, human waste increasingly found in Westfield Mall elevators, staff say. Now, you might say, people are pooping in the elevators? And the answer would be yes. Yes, they are. People are going to the bathroom in an iconic San Francisco shopping mall's elevators, and it's getting worse, according to staff. We've covered this in full. Seeing feces on the ground is not uncommon in the city by the Bay, but human waste has been showing up somewhere else. The elevators in the downtown San Francisco Westfield Center. Yeah, it's like twice a week now. It used to be once a month. So lately, it's increased. Garcia thinks people in the elevators, as they are the closest semi-private spaces to Mission Street, where there are often people camped. Multiple workers said the only regularly used public restrooms at the mall are on the second floor. So you got to go up. This is homeless people. You've got a whole bunch of homeless people because this is in close proximity to the Tenderloin, where all the homeless are. So you got a mall impacted by the homeless, and then after a while, you're going to have just this kind of momentum of businesses leaving, and that's what's happened to this particular mall. Everybody and their brother has left. Now, you got leadership in San Francisco saying, yeah, but things are getting better. Some of the numbers in San Francisco are getting better. Has Daniel Lurie, the new Mayor Lurie in San Francisco, has he made a difference with homelessness? Well, he says he has, and some people are saying, it's getting a little bit better. But what has happened to this mall specifically? It's got such that downward momentum that I don't think it can recover. And it's going to take a new owner and somebody really pumping some money into this. And you know what? Malls just aren't what they used to be. Retail shopping just isn't what it used to be in a lot of areas. So, who's going to buy a mall and go, yeah, we can make this work? Well, somebody who buys it for an absolute song. Just absolutely so cheap that there's no way they can't just not rent out a handful of the spaces and break even. That's what it's going to take. And that's where our numbers are. $1 billion dropped in valuation. Pure insanity. It's a long way to the bathrooms from Mission Street. So the elevators are closest to the street. It's so easy to take a number 2 on the elevator at the San Francisco Center Mall, Westfield Mall. That's not good. Other restaurants, such as those in the food court or retail stores, are often closed due to sanitation issues or people doing drugs in there, or prostitutes serving their clientele in there, or, just the regular shenanigans of the homeless population. Just shenanigans. And then you wonder why the mall can't attract customers and why the mall can't attract tenants, and then all the tenants leave, and then Nordstrom leaves, and Bloomingdale's leaves, and just the whole everybody leaves, and then you're left with a bunch of homeless people taking dookies on the elevator. Yeah. The Standard overheard a manager at the Westfield Bloomingdale say one of the store's restrooms would be closed for the rest of the day on Monday because something happened in there. Garcia and other mall workers said the elevators along Mission Street occasionally have feces in them, whereas the elevators along Market Street are often much cleaner. Mission Street, terrible. Market Street, less terrible. That's bottom line here. Okay, so you got a current valuation of $195 million, and it was $1.2 billion before that. I mean, wow. That is absolutely nuts. But is this surprising? No, because it's all based on income stream. And what are they getting for mall space? And how many square feet do they have here? And how many tenants do they currently have? Even if they could, get a bunch more tenants, the average vacancy rate in San Francisco is what, 35%? Something like that? And what's somebody going to come into this mall and pay for space? Apparently, not a lot. And that's what the appraisal is saying. Under $200 million for a 1.5 million square foot mall. If you know commercial numbers at all, you know that, wow, that is some downward trending. Maybe the 1.2 billion or whatever it was, maybe that was a little bit more than before, but it's based on income stream, right? It's based on income stream. It's not based on how well the wife likes the kitchen. Oh, that has beautiful countertops. Love the counters. Love the cabinetry. Oh, I can fit all my stuff in here. You don't have that in commercial. You got a little bit of that. Oh, it's a nice looking mall. But you've got more. What are the stats? What's the square footage? What's the costs? What's the management? What's the everything to run commercial space, right? Postponed auction of broke mall delays reimagining. Oh, this is some great writing. We got the San Francisco Examiner coming in with, hey, we need to reimagine and rethink the San Francisco Center Mall. An auction for the bulk of the giant and mostly empty San Francisco Center Mall at the edge of Union Square shopping district was again delayed this week. Because what happens is the lender's due diligence is to make sure that everything is in place. And by lender, I mean whomever has taken this over. You've got, and I shouldn't say lender, I should say the court system, because this is basically court system of a judge is going to be in charge of, having all the bits and pieces together to work the foreclosure auction. And so if they need to delay for, multiple times to basically make sure they've got everything in place, then that's what they do. So pushing off the day when a new owner might revitalize the once thriving retail, restaurant, theater, and office complex. All of that is gone. That's just all basically gone, along with $1 billion in valuation. Mind-blowing. Previously set for Thursday, the auction putting up for sale a $625.6 million lien. That was the 558 plus a bunch of extra, carrying costs and stuff in there. $625 million lien. All right, so let's talk about that for a second. Got a lien, 625. You got debt on there for that, and it's currently valued. It's currently valued at $195 million. How's that auction going to go? What's the minimum going to be? $100 million? What's this thing actually going to go for? Is $195 million the appraised value, current appraised value? Is that accurate? We're going to find out, right? So the mall's former operators walked away from their $558 million loan, like I was saying, in mid-2025. It's now slated for September 4th. It was originally scheduled for last November. It's been repeatedly postponed since then. Well, this is a massive foreclosure. I mean, physically, it's the biggest mall in San Francisco, but one of the biggest malls in the United States. I mean, I can't imagine there's, too many that are larger than that. And especially, how many of them are in foreclosure? Now, you got a bunch of malls that are struggling because that whole retail thing, everybody's shopping online, myself included. I just don't go to the mall very often, right? So not only do you have poop on the elevator, you've got a massive shift in how retail shopping, retail malls basically run their operations. International mall giant Unibail Rodamco, Westfield and Brookfield Asset Management announced they would turn over the keys to the mall in June of 2023, just weeks after anchor Nordstrom said, we're out of here. They had 5 levels in there, as a lot of the Nordstroms do. And that's why they're always in kind of these big retail shopping malls, big space. Got to have room for the women's department, men's department, shoes, athletics, makeup, just all that stuff that Nordstrom's has. Today, vast majority of the mall's retail tenants have deported. They have left. It needs to be reimagined. It needs to be rethought. Now it's largely a dead zone, though some retailers continue to operate there. Court-appointed receiver has supervised the mall since October of 23, with the real estate services firm JLL acting as manager and leasing agent. You've got a mall that's in just total decay. It's, whomever's taking care of it is taking care of it as a placeholder for whomever is going to come in and buy it until the court system, gets through with all of these extensions of, hey, we need to have this in place, or, maybe one of the borrowers, one of the folks sues based on something. You've got all this legal stuff that needs to go on before you have something this size actually hit the foreclosure auction and get sold. Because who's going to want to take this down? Hey, I've got a slightly used mall for you that I know if you do a quick Google search, you're going to come up with some Pretty questionable stuff like human waste increasingly found in the Westfield Mall elevators. Yep, that's the mall that you and I are, we're talking about doing something with here. And yeah, you might come up with that. So you need to overlook the whole aspect of that. And is somebody going to overlook its proximity and what it's got going on with street conditions? This is what happens when you allow street conditions to just basically run rampant. People don't want to shop at the mall. Tenants don't want to stay at the mall. New tenants, potential tenants, don't want to take space down. There's another mall that I believe is just a few blocks away, and it's like 90-something% occupied because it doesn't have the influence that this mall does from the homeless community, from the whacked out, drug-addled nut jobs that are stealing everything in sight. And then when they really got to take a poop, if they're in the neighborhood, they just go into the Westfield Mall elevators and boop, number 2. Going up? Yes, we are. Something's going down at the same time, though, too. Something happened in the restroom, an event. Yeah, so gross, right? So gross. So this whole thing postponed, not shocking. One appraisal dated August 2024, done amid a continuing exodus of businesses, estimated the collateral property $260 million, down from the $1.22 billion by CBRE in 2016 when the loan was originally issued. So when you had that $558 million loan, you had a valuation. I believe at that time that matches up with the $1.22 billion. And now you're down to $195 million. So literally a year ago, appraised for $260, and now it's dropped another $65 million, and you're under $200 million, and you had a valuation of $1.22 billion. Those are some astounding numbers. Couldn't happen to a finer city. Somebody's going to make some real money on this, though, right? I mean, let's be honest. The dirt alone's got to be worth what? Massive, massive. Does it make sense? How much money are you going to have to put in it to put it back together? How much, poop mitigation you're going to have to do? And you can't really change the location, but, if you've got evidence of other malls in the area doing pretty okay, then something can be done to kind of change around the trajectory. It's just probably going to need to take a bunch. But if somebody can get this mall for cheap, figure out what to do, somebody's going to make some real money because street conditions in San Francisco aren't going to be there forever, but they're bad now. It's like Seattle. Yeah, they're bad there. Portland, same thing. LA, you just got a bunch of homeless people running around doing their thing willy-nilly. And unless you're involuntarily putting them in treatment, whether they're getting into detox and treatment or mental health care facility or jail, those are your 3 options. Prison, because they're breaking the law so often. Stealing from the community, buying and selling stolen goods, buying and selling drugs. They're breaking the law. And they're causing, basically, street conditions are what caused this mall to have an enormous, enormous drop in value alongside with the whole retail shopping collapsing. Because people aren't shopping at these big centers, these big stores anymore. And if the stores are saying, you know what, no can do, we got to leave this mall, then there's just that absolute downward trajectory of not only value, but, the income that these stores are deriving for the mall's ownership. None of that is happening. A fraction of that is happening. And that's where you see another $65 million in lost value. All right. Not huge, but when you've already dropped nearly $1 billion already, yeah, that's when you've got just basically the perfect storm of things going sideways for this mall, and that momentum, that downward trajectory. I think that is probably what's carrying this mall more than anything else, because that's just an enormous, enormous drop. I mean, poop poop or no poop on the elevator, right? Somebody's going to be able to look at the numbers, make them pencil based on a hypothetical, which is, we're going to reimagine this mall different way. There's no other outcome really but to sell that title and to try and get something back. Rothschild said, well, when you're in 558 million and you're claiming you're in now 600 million and change, you ain't getting much back. There's no recourse beyond the most ultimately disposing of the asset and time restrictions on that as well. And there's time restrictions on that as well. Hey, got to move this asset along an XYZ period of time. So, absolutely crazy that this is kind of where this mall sits right now. Be super interesting to see what this mall goes for at auction. Does it go? That's another thing. Does it go? Does this thing just get traded around? Who knows, right? Who knows? I love in this title, Broke Mall Delays Reimagining. Couldn't happen to a finer city, right? Couldn't happen to a finer city. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'd love to have you subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.